Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the 1957 film The Incredible Shrinking Man, continuing on with my survey of science fiction movies. This was released in 1957. It was put out by Universal Studios, directed by Jack Arnold, and starred Grant Williams as the title character. It's based on a novel by Richard Matheson, who also wrote the script for the film. This is a fairly famous movie. I don't know if it's as well seen as some of the others from the 50s, but I know it's recently got some attention. I know the Criterion put out a Blu-ray of this film with lots of extras and things like that. I just have an old DVD release right here, but the title says it all with this film. Just to give a little bit of what it's about, we start out with the film with a couple, Robert Scott Carey and his wife, who are out on a boating, kind of a little boating expedition, and she goes down to get something at the boat, get some beer, I think they mention. And suddenly a mysterious mist comes over the ship and gets all over Scott. And soon enough notices that he's shrinking. It starts out with subtle things where his clothes suddenly seem a little too big for him, and then it becomes more noticeable where he notices a lack of appetite and he is shrinking. Of course, he goes to doctors and gets many tests done and things like that, and the doctors are baffled until they find out that he was probably exposed to something toxic, possibly radioactive. And really the doctors they think they come up with something at first, like a serum to maybe stop him from shrinking, but nope, the problem keeps getting worse and worse. He keeps getting smaller and smaller, and his whole life starts to change. So this movie, it's a fast movie. It moves at 80 minutes, but it packs in quite a bit of story with 80 minutes, and that's one of the things that I like about it. So one of the things the movie gets into is masculinity is a big theme in this film, especially as he begins to shrink. He's feeling emasculated, and the dynamic with his wife changes, especially as he's getting much smaller. Okay, pretty clear metaphors there. Now the novel gets into a little bit of some of the difficulties he was having with his wife in their physical relationship. The movie only hints at such things, but as he's getting smaller, he's getting angrier, and the relationship with his wife becomes more and more strained for a number of reasons. And just a movie about, when we first see Scott, he's a very healthy person, just seems to have it all with the world. And to see him be diminished gradually as the film unfolds to, at one point in the middle of the film, he befriends another little person who works with a circus and kind of connects with her a little bit. And there's something in that, too, about how when our social station changes and how that changes the people that we associate with, and by the mere fact of him getting smaller, the connection between him and his wife is different. He briefly connects with this other woman, but he notices he's still getting smaller. It's not getting better at all, and eventually he is so small where he has to live in a dollhouse, talking about the emasculation themes in the film. And eventually the house cat takes notice, and suddenly, as he gets smaller and smaller, it becomes a battle for survival for him, as you can see from the cover of this DVD. The giant spider monster, as it's referred to, and for the last part of the movie, he has to compete or battle for dominance, as he says, with this spider and things like that. So masculinity is an interesting theme in the movie, especially 1950s masculinity and the fragility of it, and how he has to find kind of a new identity for himself. You know, he's become the middle class, successful. He works in advertising. He's achieved what society expects of him, but once everything changes, he has to completely reorient what self fulfillment means, which really just means basic survival, as the story goes. Yeah, and there's the special effects in the film we should talk about, which I think still look great. You know, the use of making the actor look smaller and having large sets, large furniture on sets, and making the cat. You know, we see the cat at the beginning, who is just a normal everyday house cat, and how that cat becomes more threatening once he is a little person. Suddenly that cat's no longer your friend. You know, they view him as with predatory instincts kick in. So that theme of nature is a big part of the film as well. Nature and survival comes into play, and so the movie kind of moves in stages, where initially it's more psychological, as he's dealing with what it means to be a smaller person and how it's affecting him as a husband and everything like that. Then the story becomes really more of a survival story, of realizes that he has to find a way to survive. So that idea of the will to survive kicks in with Scott, and then finally the movie becomes kind of philosophical and even achieves a sort of transcendence by the end of the movie, as he accepts his lot, and but still finds solace in that he is still part of the universe, even though he's becoming minuscule. Like, this eventually might become the size of an atom, or eventually might become nothing at all. So all the nature and the psychological themes are great in the film, and like at one point he becomes famous because of his condition, and there's also a little bit about that, about how what it means to be a freak, and he, you know, has to deal with that, and I like that part of the movie where he briefly finds some community with some other little people, which the movie doesn't explore too much, but that was interesting as well. So it's yeah, kind of a unique science fiction film. Great special effects. The fight with the spider's great. The music is really good in this movie. Really great trumpet. Kind of a trumpet is at the forefront of the score in the film, and yeah. So it's and I think it still holds up well. I think the themes in the film are still very much worthwhile. I know I've taught this film before, and I've showed it to college students, and they've really liked it, really responded well to it, and really found it interesting. So it's kind of transcends generations in some ways. But yeah, and there's been many attempts to remake Incredible Shrinking Man. There was a remake, sort of a remake, made in the early 1980s, called The Incredible Shrinking Woman, which starred Lily Tomlin, and I believe Joel Schumacher directed the film, which that one's not as well known. That one's more of a satire of feminism in some ways, but also I remember consumerism being a big theme in that film as well. So kind of a obscure remake of The Incredible Shrinking Man, but if you're a devotee of 1980s movies, it's definitely one to seek out. And yeah, so just a fun movie, just well made. It moves at a very rapid pace, as I talked about, and pretty memorable. The novel, as I said, is a little different. Kind of fills in some of the gaps a little bit. You get a little more complete picture in the novel as far as how the story goes, and the movie also connects with a lot of, as I've talked about, a lot of these science fiction movies of the 50s, and that sense of calm in American society, but also a sense of deep unease of how quickly someone can lose everything, and we definitely see that in The Incredible Shrinking Man. So there we go. I guess that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you later. Bye.